and we're back from Carnival. We got drunk, we smoked, we had a lot of fun. We didn't sleep too much. My throat hurts. And how are you doing, man?
Hey guys, we survived. Still half sick, something that always happens to me after carnival. But other than that, everything is okay.
Yeah, it's always worth it. You have fun for 5 days, and then you're sick for another 5 days. But at the end, it's worth it. So, man, have you been playing Artifact this week, or?
Yeah, draft. Played a little bit with red blue luck and constructed. Variation that I've seen. I can't remember the name of the player that actually put the deck up. I did some changes of my own to the deck, but been meddling with it.
Did you put the deck up in Artifact Fire, or where did you see the deck?
Yeah, I saw it in Artifact Fire, but the variation that I saw was one from the early times, and I changed some cards because I don't think they're good in the current meta, and I didn't really like exactly the way it was supposed to play, the way it was made. So I did some changes, and I've been enjoying myself with it.
That's the most important thing. I've been playing mostly draft. I keep going at it in the Artifact Bitcoin League. Doing quite well actually this week. In the previous weeks, I was struggling. This week I've already won one tournament, and I placed second in a couple of them. So I'm doing well in the leaderboard right now. I think I'm like 40th or whatever at the moment. So I think I should be good for the next qualifier, hopefully. But I'm enjoying myself, and I'll keep playing. If I have time, the thing is time. You need a couple, 2-3 hours to finish the tournament. But on the other hand, if you draft and then your deck is bad, you can just quit. So great. So guys, I think this is when I look at our podcast notes, it feels like this week, or rather the last couple of weeks, because we didn't make a cast last week, there's quite a lot of stuff to talk about. First up, I would like to just mention that I went through the usual websites looking for content, and actually randomly this week, I don't know if the websites were expecting the patch to come out because of the Dota 2 patch that just came with the new hero Mars. I don't know if the websites were maybe hoping for a new patch to come out for Artifact, but there's quite a few articles coming out this week. Artibuff, Rockman wrote a couple of primers on red, green, and mono blue. So 2 of the top constructed decks at the moment. It's a pretty cool read. If you guys are interested, I would definitely recommend to go and have a look at that. Back at the Red Mist website, they also wrote an article. Odeco wrote an article about Black Red, how to build your deck, giving his input on how he goes about building a deck. And other than that, Artifact Fire also pushed an article on kind of a game strategy, called the ins and outs and of tower destruction. So focusing on when to attack the tower, when is it worth to push, how to go about it, and how to think about it. And also what I would say I found on Reddit this website called teamrankstar.com. It's basically an article called the board state artifact, going through the history of the game, the hype at the beginning, the what they call the beta fiasco, the money scheme, the silence, and now the end question is Artifact dead. So that's if you want to Google that up, it's a decent read as well. And then of course you can leave a reply, comment, and the usual stuff. So
I read that one, and I felt it was like, I don't want to say toxic, but I felt it was just like what all the things that he talks about. It's well known and been beaten around the bush for so long. I read it and I was like, okay, so we're just recycling content.
Yeah, I also thought he could have spent more time, going through all the points or giving different perspectives on each point. It's kind of concise, but yeah.
I felt like the one, the tower destruction, the ins and outs, that was pretty interesting, because that's one of the things that I struggle the most. When you feel like you're not going to win, but and sometimes you're like, I'm going to abandon this lane, but should you not? Should you just keep going even if you're going to lose, so you don't make him completely put all the pressure in the other lanes? That was an interesting one.
Cool. Yeah, anyway, I just wanted to, let the community know that there's stuff out there to read, because I'm sure most people don't check stuff every day, since the game itself is kind of stale, as it is. In any case, wanted to also mention that on the last cast we mentioned this RT Push phone application. I've been using it, and I just wanted to give them a quick, short review. The application is pretty good to me. It's quite easy to use, straightforward. There's a couple of funny features. Um, my overall impression is that it could use a better sort of filter. Like, it would be good to be able to filter through all the information better, kind of select. The tournaments are separated into major and minor tabs and recommended tabs, and I kind of wish I could select which tournaments would go in each tab, and as well as, especially uh, because I keep getting notifications for tournaments, and I kind of would like to select which ones I get notifications for. Other than that, it's pretty cool because I can register from my phone onto the event. So let's say I'm coming home from work or whatever. If I see an event is coming up, I can register. When I get home, I'm just need to press play and start playing. The application seems pretty awesome. I think there's still a lot of stuff they can do with it, but it's looking pretty good. And I think if there's people out there like me that are always looking for tournaments and looking for a competitive side of the game, this is a good application to have on your phone, especially because since you most of the time need Steam Guard to log in to register for the tournaments, you anyway need to use your phone, so it's kind of easy to use it. So yeah, just wanted to mention that. Free publicity. Feel free to sponsor us if you want. Otherwise, I think the hot topic this week came from the RTBuff website. They posted an article saying that Richard Garfield is no longer at Valve. I have to say, quite honestly, I thought I when I saw this, I was a bit shocked because I thought Garfield was no longer at Valve anyway. I thought he was long gone. But apparently, on the March 8th, Rockman from RTBuff wrote this piece of news. Apparently, Valve had layoffs. They fired people, and in this group of people were some Artifact people, and one of them was Richard Garfield. Did you read the article? Do you have any input?
Yeah, I read it. The thing is, you were saying you got surprised that he was still there. The thing is, when the first core set was released, they were already working on the first expansion and second expansion.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they were still there. They were still working on the expansions.
I see.
And tweaks. It's when I saw the news at first, I was kind of demoralized because my first impression was, okay, this is a bad sign, because if they're throwing Garfield out, means that they're probably slowly losing interest in reviving the game. But in the interview, Garfield says that even though they're not working for Valve directly, they're still giving free counseling on how to get the game better and how to change this and that without breaking the game or some mechanic. It's written in the article.
Can I just wanted to say, because for people who have not read it, so basically the guy from RTBuff sends an email to Valve, and Gabe Newell actually directly answers, and it says it was 13 people. It was a people thing, not an hardware thing. So because he writes, hello, Mr. Newell, there was a rumor circulating on Reddit that half of the Valve hardware team has been laid off. And he says it was just 13 people. It was a people thing, not a hardware thing. And then he contacts Richard Garfield, and Richard Garfield answers back, and that's what you were mentioning. So Richard Garfield works generally with Scaf Elias. That's an old game developer. I think he was quite high up at Wizards of the Coast, so he was one of the major guys headlining Magic. And I think they opened the company together, Scaf Elias and Richard Garfield. So both of them, they quit. And interestingly, he says both Scaf and I remain optimistic about the quality of the game and have offered our feedback and advice on an ongoing gratis capacity, simply because we would like to see the game do well do as well as we think it can. We enjoyed working with Valve, and I was impressed with their relentless focus on the quality of the game and experience being offered to the player. So even though they were laid off, basically it's saying that they are quite happy to cooperate again. And my feeling is, and other people have said this, is just that they're not really programmers. They're there to as a game designer. They're there to give their input on how to design the cards and the overall feel of the game and so on, but not to program in itself. And I guess at the moment, what Valve needs is just people with their heads down, pressing keys on the keyboard, getting code done to get this next big patch out. So I'm not very surprised, but it's great to see that Gabe Newell and Richard Garfield and so on answer directly to the people when challenged.
Well, apparently Valve was contacted and we're waiting on some reply, but we don't know. We might not even get it. For me, the big question is, did they sack them because they felt, okay, you built something, you made a game, this is how you thought it was going to work, it didn't work, so now we're going to do it our way? Or is it just, okay, we're going to sack you, the game is dead, and people are not playing it, we're going to start from scratch, or we're going to abandon it? What does this mean? And this is what I would like Valve to say publicly, what they're going to do about it, because the long haul thing that they keep putting on their rare posts, it can keep us going for a while, but it won't keep us forever, and we're going to need to know something about it, because this sack of the three donkeys is just something that hits us right in the stomach, because we want to know, where's Artifact going from here?
Yeah, but on the other hand, I think, and Richard says this, he says, the expertise that Three Donkeys brought is less critical after listening to us for 4 years, 4+ years, he writes. And that's true. I mean, so he himself doesn't seem surprised. It doesn't seem to be any bad blood, because he offers his ongoing feedback for free. What I think is interesting is that then the article proceeds to make some conclusions that I think are a bit speculative, because they say the Artifact team has been downsized. Yeah, I guess in a way, we don't know for sure. I mean, there's no point in keeping Richard Garfield around just whistling if there's not anything for him to do at the moment. And he says this will likely impact, because he speculates that the Artifact team has been downsized. He says this will likely impact the release schedule as well as the $1 million tournament. I mean, the $1 million tournament is probably already significantly delayed. This is not a consequence of these layoffs, because it's mid-March. There's 3 weeks left without an announcement. There's no way that the tournament is going to be run on time, and the impact of the release schedule is impossible to know. But I assume that they are all focusing on releasing this huge patch. So I'm just not sure. I'm just not. It doesn't make a lot of sense, these conclusions that what's his name, Rockman, takes from the initial interview and information. But it's anyway a negative overall. I mean, it would be, of course, it would be cooler if the news were, we're hiring more people and Richard has been working like crazy. That would be way better, right?
Yeah, well, because at the state of the game at the moment, most people that were still clinging to the game, like us, start to get worried because they don't give us any information, and we see people getting sacked. But it's like you say, they already gave all their positive feedback. Valve already knows how the business should run, and there's no real point on keeping people that can't contribute more to the project.
Well, if anything, we know now that the player base kind of is stabilized. I mean, to be fair, it could not get much worse. It could get worse, of course. I mean, there could be 0 people playing the game. But this kind of segues nicely into another post that came out a couple of days ago, where a user with a difficult nickname posted that according to his calculations, this is all estimate. These are all estimates, or rather calculations based on estimates that he takes from the daily fluctuations of player numbers. That kind of suggests that the player base is between 30 to 60,000 active players. So kind of if you take the median, there will be around 45,000 players. And this is all calculated. He describes everything that he does. It makes a lot of sense, or it did, at least as I read it. And this translates into the kind of a concurrent player count between 250 and 500 that we see at the moment.
Oh yeah, I've last time I checked, I think every 24 hours, the top peak is around 300 players. So
what I thought was interesting is that he writes that, or he took the information apparently that the average playtime for active players is 2.6 hours over the past 2 weeks, which I thought was interesting. I mean, personally, I have more. I for sure have more, because I generally play tournaments, and if I have the day off, like today I played a couple of tournaments, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. But interesting to see that maybe that corresponds to like the time that it takes to run a tournament or run a queue. So maybe the 4 or 5 games, I guess. 2.6 hours. So it's just an interesting statistic. Most people that sit down to play the game do it for at least a couple of hours. At least the hardcore players that remain in the game, at least.
and now we're talking about the games with the speed mode. Am I the only one that hates this new less time to play? I mean, since they implemented the cut down on the time to think to pass each turn, I fucking hate this new system that they put.
Yeah, I used to hate it at the beginning now, but I've really grown used to it. I don't struggle with it anymore. I'm how do I say? I've just grown used to it. I don't struggle during the normal turns of the game, so to say. But like I will go down a lot. Like I will tank if I have a difficult turn or something that I feel is like a critical point in the game. But the first week or two, I was losing quite a few games to just running out of time, and this hasn't happened in quite a while.
Oh, I guess 1 out of 10 games I get, I lose because of time. I seriously, if the game could stop saying 15 seconds for forced surrender, I'll love it.
What I feel is that this needs to be adapted, so they're like, at least in tournaments and so on, these options need to be adjusted so that people can select kind of the time that they need, and maybe for the normal queues they could be a bit longer. I'm not sure, but I mean, Valve has already changed the times around, so they have shown that they are willing to tweak them if necessary. But I guess now is not the time to do that. Now they need to do other stuff, and then they can go back to that when there's more people in the game again, I guess.
I guess since I've been playing more control decks lately instead of the more aggressive ones, I've been feeling the smaller timer more and more and more.
Oh yeah, I will give you that. If I'm playing mono blue in constructed, I will run out of time, no doubt. Like if I find that deck extremely difficult to play, but I haven't played it much, so I can say is in draft I don't struggle as much. I wanted to also say that there's not been a lot of tournaments. However, the Chronosphere Cup #2 qualifier did go. Was this weekend? I believe the top 8 is going on at the moment as we speak, actually. So I have no idea who's winning. And hopefully, or according to the plan, the Chronosphere Cup LAN finals will be early April. This will be in over in America. I guess the winner of these qualifiers gets the trip paid to go. This is organized by Nerd Street Gamings, so shout out to them for putting the show on. That's pretty cool. The community needs this. And otherwise, what I also would like to say is that apparently we don't have any high-profile tournaments coming for the next week or for the foreseeable future. I would love to know when WePlay is organizing their intelligence trial, but I guess they're on hold, waiting for a patch to come.
Yeah, something that shakes things up, because tournaments like 1 week or 2 after a patch is always more interesting because meta changes, decks are different. No one wants to see the same old decks again and again and again and again.
For sure. In any case, if you guys want to go have a look, you can go to twitch.tv/nerdstreetgamers. With the nerd is written with a 3 instead of an E, and the street is ST. Actually, maybe it looks like Saint Gamers. But in any case, go to their Twitch channel. You can watch the VODs if you've missed the Chronosphere Cup I watched quite a few interesting matches, and it's mixed, constructed, and draft, so there's everything there for everyone. Quick segment change to talk about. We had a challenge, or we had a suggestion by one of our users on Reddit, and basically the challenge,
More like a
a
nightmare.
nightmare, was to basically build a deck around Rebel Instigator. And
Oh God.
I have to say I didn't even try, but
Oh, I
but you
tried
did.
so
So do you
hard.
want to share your experience?
Ah, yeah. Well, I'm gonna say the same that I put it on the posts when I traded comments with Burnmelt, which was the person who accidentally suggested the Rebel Instigator. Um, yeah, there's nothing that you can change about the card not being meta viable, and it's really hard to work with it because it's 4 mana. The stats are bad. What it does is very complicated to make it work because it only has 3 life. I try to mix it a bit with green, and the only way that I actually made a deck with it that could win with the card was using Dark Seer. I would play the Rebel Instigator. I would shift it with Dark Seer to a lane where it would be safe for it to be. I would buff it. I would try to make it bigger and watch it replicate. The problem is when it replicates as itself. It doesn't replicate with the buffs. So
Yeah, the buffs, you mean the green hero
to,
buffs. So basically the deck has to be red because you need to play the Rebel Instigator, and you choose
yeah,
green because you want to keep the dude alive, which is a nightmare.
and to give it and to give it because my main issue is if I always play it on the lane, I won't be able to protect it that lane on that turn. So I had to have something that would give it mobility. The only thing that occurred to me was to play it with Darkseer, and it was the only way that I made it work. Because if I went full red, it would never stick to the board. If I went with blue, God, I didn't even want to try that. I know Burnmelt told me about playing with black because of the sexy death ball.
Which one is that one?
Um,
The mass that sacrifices
it's
things.
yeah, the that Burnmelt played it that way. He
Okay.
does that. And actually would like to know a little bit more about that. So if Burnmelt, if
That
you listen
sounds
to
that
this
sounds like a
episode,
fun way to lose, is what I think.
yeah, like if you listen to this episode, please tell us more about the deck that you did. Well, the one I did was with green, and I had to play with Dark Seer, and I used Soul of Spring to help it, and of course I had to use Ramusk, and I even used Defend the Weak. I mean, half of the deck had to be things to make it survive, because the fun part was using Rebel Instigator as something that would work and win the game, not just be a filler
Well, the
card.
problem is that you also don't draw the Rebel Instigator every game, so then yeah, it becomes weird, I guess.
But yeah, that was it. That was mainly it.
Cool. Anyway, thanks for the suggestion. We're open to other suggestions if people want to challenge us with other fun ideas or more competitive ideas. Um, we're happy to have a go and go for it. As long as there's not much else to talk about, that's something we're open to do.
Yeah, I'll sacrifice for your sins.
In any case, guys, if you have any other suggestions for segment ideas, things you'd like us to discuss, or if you would like to join our Discord and join the podcast, we're recording Sunday 4 p.m. CET every week. You can come on the Discord. You can write something if you want us to talk about it, or you can actually just join us, and we're happy to talk to you live and record with you. Um, the podcast is now on all major platforms, as you know: iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, TuneIn, Stitcher, and so on. If you want to let us know what you think on Reddit or on Twitter, you can tweet at me at 9armada. Otherwise, you can join the Discord right there, or you can leave a review and let us know what you thought about the podcast. Anything else you would like to say, man?
I think I had something, but I forgot, which is kind of hilarious. Oh, I know. if you guys got like, I know there's people, 4 or 5 friends that have Artifact and they're bored of playing the same constructed decks, or they don't want to play draft. I found out that Red Mist actually has a challenge. There's an option. It's kind of a challenge mode where you can actually make, well, in Magic you call it pauper, right? Pauper decks.
Just commons. Yeah.
So yeah, and there's a mode, a challenge mode, let's call it, in Red Mist, that allows you to do something like that, and that might be an interesting way to make a tournament instead of using all those power creep cards. Be more skill based deck building and using certain cards that don't have a place in the meta because of all those other OP ones. And yeah, I just felt that would be a cool thing to do.
Cool. So I think that's it for this week. As always, thanks for listening. And I don't want to repeat myself too much, but let us know what you thought, and let us know if you have any topics for us to discuss. Otherwise, peace and have a good week.
Yeah, guys, see you next week.